What would you do if you had the power to manipulate matter? Now imagine a game where the main character gains possession of a material that would allow them to generate any weapon. They could transform the material into the weapon that would be most useful for them in that specific situation. This transformation would also happen in real time, allowing for spectacular visuals. Using procedural generation from a software called Houdini, we can create a morph effect that could transform any number of modeled weapons in-game in real time. This is an example of that transformation right here. Hello, my name is Logan Kirkus. My student innovation project is weapon procedural generation. This allows weapons to transform into other weapons in real time in video games. I made 4 weapon models, which you can see here. I made them in 3ds Max. Is a sword, shield, spear, and bow. And in Houdini, I added a morph effect to them, between them creating interesting transformations. Unfortunately, because of the limitations in Houdini's free version, I cannot bring them into Unreal. However, I created this template in Unreal showing what would happen. As you can see, the 4 weapons are in the back over there, and the character's walking around with the sword. The weapons switch at the press of a button, just minus the transformations, which I will be showing them off in Houdini. As you can see, at the press of 1, 2, 3, or 4, the weapons transform into each other. Doesn't matter what order they're in, it will still transform into the other weapon. And they run around with each the body too. And that's basically what would happen with the transformations as well. It would just transform and you'd see it happen. This project adds something new and interesting to the game industry. Using the software Houdini allowed me to have access to a bunch of morph transformations. I made 4 weapon models and created 6 morph transformation animations. Each animation can be played forward and reverse depending on the transformations that are being used based off the press of the button that you want to switch to that weapon. Using the transformations, each weapon can transform into each other. It basically tears one weapon apart by its vertices and reforms it into the other weapon, sort of like how I imagine magnetic sand would kind of do it. It adds a whole new level to game weapon design and how weapons function in video games. This would not happen in a cutscene or anything. It would happen at the press of a button while dealing with whatever situation is in front of you. This innovation would not only look great happening in real time, adding extra visual stimulation, but would also help a lot with video game design. You could create an entire game's story, levels, puzzles based off of this game mechanic. And this is kind of how it works. So in Houdini, basically I just added a file of each weapon. You see this one's the sword and this one's the shield. I edited the transformations so they'd line up on each other so you could see it happen easier, but it doesn't have to be on top of each other. You can put like the sword in one hand and the shield in the other, and at the press of the button it'll swap to the other arm and you could block basically. What happens though is after the transformations are there, you add a scatter effect to each one of the weapons, and then it combines into this final animation that based off of this slider switches between them. And at the beginning of the slider it's the sword, at the end of the slider it's the shield. So it kind of goes that way. And then the Unreal scene that I made, this is the blueprint that I used to create that scene. However, that scene is just purely visual. All the weapons are basically being held by the character at the same time, and just the press of 1, 2, 3, or 4, the visibility of each weapon changes. And basically, I just put this at the top here that you start off beginning of the game with the sword visible, and as you press buttons, the sword will go invisible to the other weapons, basically. And this cool game mechanic could create a very fun game. This whole game could be built around a strange material that changes to your needs. As you progress the game, you could unlock more weapons and add to your arsenal to help you in dire situations. You would need to use your head, though, to figure out the right weapon to use in that specific situation to help you overcome the challenge. The material could even possibly be turned into tools, which would open up many different puzzles that could, be used, a whole bunch of wrenches, all things like that, that could lead to a bunch of new and exciting areas. Doesn't that sound like a fun game? Thank you.